Hello, and welcome to another episode of Make Love Real, How to Create More Love in Your Life. I'm Mia Saenz, and in this episode, you get to meet Barry Selby. Now, I've known Barry for a very long time, and it's really exciting to bring him on. We have been friends and colleagues and have done projects together, so I am very excited for his segment today because he's one of the males that I know in this industry that really focuses in on the true you, the love, the empowered you, and it's really beautiful. So welcome, Barry.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Will you share with the audience a little bit about what brought you to where you are today and why you love this work? And then we'll get into your topic of why you should be your BFF, or why your mirror is your own BFF.
Indeed. Okay. Well, first of all, just to shortcut people thinking, where's he from? I'm English by background and from upbringing. And so I was definitely raised in a very, I'll say, unemotional family. We're very stoic and very stiff upper lip type thing, because that's the English way. So emotional expression wasn't natural in my upbringing. So love was also the same thing, suppressed and very sort of, keep saying when I say the word nice, like how we live, everyone's fine, we're all fine. So going through my dating life, especially in my late teens and early 20s, I made lots of mistakes, and looking back, I know exactly what I did wrong, but that was the thing, I had hindsight. And so in my journey through the seminars, trainings, teachings, growth, education I've had for the last 30, 40 years, I've learned what did and didn't work. But the thing that really changed my life more than anything was after I had a lot of this background, including my master's in spiritual psychology and 20 years as a spiritual counselor, I still kept making mistakes in relationships, big ones. And I should say, I was making the same mistake, big mistake, again and again. And what I realized was something else was missing. And so I dived into, or I should say, I was guided to dive into the whole conversation about masculine and feminine polarity. And through that teachings, through various teachers and some incredible transformation experiences, I learned how to be in my masculine heart, which I hadn't been up to that point, which is one of the things I was missing. And also to recognize women in their feminine, and in fact, in some ways worship that, because when I see women in their feminine, it's humbling for me. And it's also what draws me to the work of helping women own their power in the world, because I've seen how many times it hasn't been available to them, hasn't been allowed for them even. And so my work is dedicated to supporting the feminine from a masculine heart. And it's really transformed my every relationship I have.
It's beautiful.
So that's a short version of what I've been through.
It's really beautiful because most men, well, let alone women, but most men don't even know what it's like to connect to that emotional state, to that inner depth, to that love. And that's why it's really important, because that's where we connect on the level that's equal and empowering, instead of one feeling that they're, a lot of women get into, and I hope this doesn't throw off our show, but a lot of women get into that space of, I have to honor my husband, or I have to admire him and love him, and isn't he just magnificent? Well, we forget about who we are, right? It doesn't have to be your husband, it can be your mate, absolutely. But it's that, and I forget who I am, because everything is about them. That's how women operate. And when they're balanced, like how you say, and honored, we learn how to become equals, and as such, creating more emotionally connected relationships. And that is a perfect segue into your topic.
Well, this is the thing that I've learned very painfully for myself, or should I say powerfully for myself, and occasionally painfully, that there's nobody out there that can make us feel as loved as we can love ourselves. We may think that's the truth, but the reality is, as you were saying about how women have been trained, well, I believe there's two ways women have been trained. One has been to worship and devote themselves to their mate, or also to be so fiercely independent and so strong in their masculine by choice that they find men who don't step up in their hearts and don't take care of them. So either way, they're not getting what they want. And I'll say all of my clients, one thing I always keep reminding them is that you really are your best resource for loving and support. And the biggest piece of that is that when we keep looking outside to be loved, we're entering into a paradigm which I have affectionately called the end of love and relationship, called codependency. And that's the trap you fall into, both genders, not just one. Because we keep thinking that when we find the right person, we will feel loved. When we find the right person, they'll take care of us. When we find the right person, I'll be okay. Which is assuming that we're not loved, we're not loving, and we're not okay to start with. It's a mistaken approach. So self-love is absolutely, you okay? Just checking. Self-love is really the key. And I talk about, in a way, being your best friend forever, the BFF, because that's kind of the joke in a way. It's like, you don't have a best friend forever out there. You are your best friend forever inside, because you're the longest relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. Not your parents, not your children, not your spouse. It's yourself. And so to keep looking outside and ignoring this part of ourselves in relationship is a huge mistake. And it's also not fulfilling. So loving yourself is the key.
I was just seeing so clearly when you were saying that, of my moments of saying, wow, I really am alone at times. Yes, I have a husband, a spouse who loves me, who honors me, supports me. I have children. I have tons of friends. I even have Barry. I have tons of friends, and yet we do have these spaces of loneliness. But if we do the work, or we realize maybe it's not loneliness, but it's not loneliness. It's the awareness that we are alone. And so the magnificence of this work and the mirror work, because it cracks us open, is when we begin to see who we truly are in that space of loving ourselves and falling in love with ourselves. We realize we are, and this is why I love you brought this up, we realize we were born alone and we will die alone. Literally, before we came in, we were alone, and as we exit, we're alone.
Don't be depressed by that.
What, honey?
And don't be depressed by that.
That's right, because the greatness is discovering your creative genius now with love, and obviously expanding it out to the world, but you become great. And so that sense of love, when I use the word great, it's just to say I'm connected to my love. And so in that space, you realize, and you can honor the people you have in your life now more, because they have their life, you have your life. I have my soul journey, you have your soul journey. And I think it takes away the fear. I know it takes away the fear and the angst and the frustration. I'm really glad you brought that up. That's very powerful.
Yeah, and that's the thing you said, which I want to spring off too, is that thing where we sometimes conflate loneliness with being alone. Because for many of us, we think that we're not whole without somebody else. Again, the codependency trap. Mm-hmm. And so we keep thinking when we have somebody else in our life, whether it's friends or a relationship, or even sometimes addictions, drugs or alcohol, that's our crutch to feel like we're going to be whole because something else makes us feel whole. But that's totally backwards, and in fact inaccurate, because we absolutely do as human beings spend time alone, but we choose to make that feel like loneliness, because loneliness is not automatic. Being alone, especially when you are discovering how amazing we really are and how great we really are, when we learn to really appreciate ourselves and who we are as beings, being alone is actually fine. We actually enjoy our space because we don't have to worry about taking care of somebody else or having to do something for somebody else. We can be free to be ourselves. So that being alone is a healthier place to be than most people give credit for. They judge me like you should be with somebody else. If you're alone, there's something wrong with you. Like, you can be in dysfunctional relationships, which are wrong, but when you're alone, you can actually be right, true to yourself, aligned to your heart, and reflecting back to yourself the love you already are. Yeah.
And I also think that when you get to that state, that space, I can still see myself even just a few days ago on the stairs coming down from my office, looking into the open, the big room from the kitchen into the family room and all that. And seeing my husband working on the couch. Obviously I'm not alone, but the realization that, we think of amazing things come to us as we get clarity and that realization. And I was like, wow, he's sitting over there. But actually, this life is mine, and he's come into my life to make it, to add on to it, and I've added on to his. But when you think about it's not being lonely, if, that concept of my journey is so powerful. No matter what, I like to refer it to as like a video game, the Mario Brothers game. Yeah. I used to play that with my kids. And so it's about getting in and getting all the rewards. And as you clear that first floor, then you run up the stairs to the second floor and you do that and you clear that and you go up again. So that's really how life is. When we think about it, we're moving through, gathering all the jewels, all the goodies, all the, bedazzlement of life, and moving up to another level. And
Yeah.
it can be as fun as a video game, literally, because we discover we're not alone.
Right. And the thing, I mean, one of the things I talk about, it's in my book, I talk about this, about how relationships are not 50-50, 100-100. But we were trained as a culture to look at relationships being a 50-50 game, like you give and you get. But that's assuming that we're incomplete, which is not true. Relationships are, as I said, 100-100, because we're all individually whole beings. Whatever we look like, whatever our ages, shape, anything else, we are completely 100% whole. And we meet somebody else, they are as well. So a relationship is not 100% as in 50-50. It's 200% because it's 100-100. Although, as I say before, a relationship is like a gestalt, which is the sum is greater than, it's greater than some of the, sorry, the wholeness is greater than some of the parts. I think is how it goes. But basically, a relationship is more than 200%. It's like 300% because it's you, your partner, and the relationship.
So I love that. That's beautiful.
Well, that's the thing, and this is the recognition. Is like you were saying, when you come down the stairs and you come to that space, you recognize your wholeness and you recognize your husband's wholeness. So the relationship you created is additive, not subtractive. So absolutely, it's a much bigger place to play in a relationship when you do both own your wholeness.
Right. And I love the name of the show that is, on the website that we have. You can probably say it better than me, that your BFF is the one you're looking at in the mirror. Make your mirror your BFF, because that's the reflection part. That's the work of self-examination, and that really does, that self-examination, that self-responsibility really does knock us into a totally different stratosphere than where we were before, because it's so connective.
And the thing is that, to be honest, for most of us who look in the mirror, we don't look at ourselves really. We look at the outside, the appearance, make ourselves look a certain way, make sure our clothes fit and the hair's straight and all these different things. But we don't often spend the time to look in our own eyes and look into our soul. The mirror work you're speaking of, and I know because I speak about it too, is when you really connect to who you are in the mirror, you recognize that your beingness is so much more than what you see in the mirror. The deception is we think that what we look in the mirror, that three-dimensional being, is all we are. But frankly, we're so much more than that when we're willing to embrace all of ourselves. So it's worth doing,
It's brilliant. And what I really love is because this is about love and wholeness, and even relationships, this show, it's how to create more love in your life, that there have been several people, I believe, that have talked about the mirror and the reflection. And it's beautiful because you and I both, so Barry and I have known each other almost 10 years, and almost 10 years. And we both, about 9.
I was thinking 2008, 2009. No, it's more than 10 years now,
I think it's like 2009, something like that.
So it's 11 years.
It would be, yeah. So I know.
Wow.
What I love is that he's a metaphysical practitioner. I'm a metaphysical practitioner. We have the same mindset, the same thing. That's why we're such great friends. Right. And to be able to see this stuff and to reach it at the level, this is why I love who you are as a human, your humanness, because you're this on the male side instead of the feminine, coming forward and saying, look, this is the reality of how it is, and you're great. And if you can look in the mirror and connect deeply to everything, everything that you've said, that's where the power is. It's really beautiful. It really is.
Sorry, I was going to say, if you're willing to take the walls down, that's when the magic happens.
Right.
But again, as I mentioned, we look at the outside because we have these walls up to protect ourselves. But we're protecting ourselves from a dragon that isn't there. When we face ourselves and drop the walls, we suddenly discover this safety and this wholeness that we have. So what you're saying, absolutely, the mirror is the place to do the work.
So just what you were saying about the dragon, I instantly saw that as our mindset, as the way we were raised, right? We were unique, being raised a specific way, and then we go in and we rechange. We teach ourselves love, and we reshift all those old paradigms out of the way. And so we're moving that dragon out of the way. Now, many people love dragons, and that's okay. So we'll talk about the fire-breathing mean dragons. It's about moving that other energy out so that the new you, the reconstructed, the developed you that you wish that you could have been from day one is who you are. And that work.
After you, sorry.
I was just going to say, it takes time, but it's okay. It's a beautiful journey.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I discovered for myself was just how much, and this was in my master's program in psychology, was discovering how much we all carry our package of programming from our childhood. Experiences we go through, the way we were taught, the way we were taught to love, the way our parents demonstrated love or didn't demonstrate love, is the rules we take on. And that paradigm is what we then live through as an adult, but we just have it now as a stashed away memory that we don't think about, but it's still operating without us realizing it. And so understanding that our true healing comes from recognizing what we've been believing as false and then releasing it so we can be free, as you mentioned. We can then claim ourselves fully as embraced as whole beings. The thing is that for many of us, especially when you're 30, 40, 50 years old, those childhood imprinted beliefs have been running for a long time. And so it's almost like you don't even know they're there because they're so automatically defaulted. So it really comes back to, you want to look back at the child you were, to love that child, recognize the child was trained perhaps inaccurately, perhaps in poor ways, so you can actually release her or him from those chains of limiting belief and be free to love yourself fully again. Because some of the work is to go that deep. And I must admit, some of my favorite work with my clients is to help them go that deep so they can really embrace their whole being, not just their current being.
I believe we have to go deep, period, no matter what. We have to excavate our amazing self out of the tomb that we were placed in, literally. You know, let's be archaeologists here, right? It's about self-love archaeologists. I love that because we're digging in to excavate all the crap. You know, there was a lot of crap I've had in my life, you know, we all do. And if we can't see it and recognize that, then we're not going to be able to grow. We recognize that there are things to shift and change. And if you're happy with your life and you feel totally loved, fabulous, good for you. Right. It's beautiful. I'm saying if you haven't done the work, if you've done the work, congratulations, that's awesome too. That's even better. Yes. So it's about excavating who you are and bringing out the true you. We were born loved. We are loved already. The worst thing that I've seen, and I want you to talk about this a little bit too, the worst thing that I've seen in our industry, and it could be from the 80s, it could be from the last 10 years, it could be from the last 30 years. But the worst thing we have in our industry is where people have taught you cannot be loved or find love unless you love yourself. I'm sorry, but we are loved. And we excavate to create that love. Right. Because it's so painful for people to say, wait a minute, I want to love, I feel love, I have a husband, does that mean he doesn't love me? I have a wife, does that mean she doesn't love me? No, that's not what we're talking about. It's about developing who you are, your own greatness.
Well, I'm going to play two things here, because this is something I talked about recently in one of my live talks. One of the things is, yes, indeed, we do, it's like, we will be loved by the people, but the truth is, when we're not able to receive it, embrace it fully until we love ourselves first. So like we have a wall up, again, we talked about earlier, because of default patterns and rules. Maybe we weren't safe when we were loved when we were kids. So when somebody else loves us as an adult, we may feel just a little bit protective and not willing to let them in fully. We don't trust them to embrace fully. I know people have been married for 20 years where the vulnerability isn't there yet because they still don't trust each other or trust themselves. The second part is, and this is something I've referenced before, is Gary Chapman's work. He wrote a book called The Five Love Languages many years ago. He was 30 years as a therapist, and he distilled down the 5 main languages we learn to love through. And just this simple understanding this piece, because imagine like you don't speak the same language. Well, love languages are ways we communicate how we love. So if you were somebody where their love language is different from yours, then there's no way for you actually to connect and to perceive yourself being loved. For example, in 2 of the love languages, for example, one of them is quality time. Another one is words of affirmation. There's 5 altogether. And those 2, for example, if you have quality time and your partner has words of affirmation, they will tell you they love you, but you won't feel loved unless they spend time with you because of the way you're wired. So understanding how our love languages are absolutely predicating, or they predicate how we feel loved. So that is one level. The second level, as I said at the beginning, is if we have love tied to some sort of trauma or pain or limited feelings as a kid, then it doesn't matter how much somebody loves us, we won't receive it. So saying we're not loved is not true, but saying we don't receive love is more accurate because we don't believe it's valid because of what we were trained with. Again, excavation for a reason, so then we can receive the love that's being given to us all along. But now we can go, thank you, I can actually receive it now, which is huge.
It's like the 4 agreements, the first one, be impeccable with your word, because the way some people are phrasing it, it makes people feel not worthy, not
Right.
lovable, and that's not the truth. You know, the love language thing is so funny you said that, because I instantly went to my love language. And the interesting thing about that is we can have separate love languages from our partners, you know,
Yes.
but what we do is we understand their love language and we support in that way.
That was
That's
the same.
that's
Yes.
deep love. And they support, I knew you know this, and they support, we just want to make sure they know this, the audience. Um,
Absolutely.
and then they support it. So
Yeah.
it's a balance. It's a, relationships are a beautiful dance, right? They could be any way you want, but it's about mirroring, reflecting, loving whomever you're with, you know, your
Mhm.
girlfriends, your guy friends, your spouse, your mate, your partner, whatever name you want to give it. It's about reflecting, it's about being present, and it's about being there.
And taking up the space that you deserve to have in that relationship as your partner does too.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful. Would you like to share with us your fabulous free gift?
Of course. Well, we
Mhm.
did speak about it really earlier in the talk, which is looking in the mirror. Um, I realized that quite a long time ago, a few years ago now, and it's funny because in parallel to what you were doing, so it's interesting we have this interesting parallel. That when I help my clients to love themselves, one of the easiest ways I know to do it, although it can be most challenging to do, is have them look at themselves in the mirror, as I mentioned, go beyond the makeup, the hair, the clothing, and look into their own eyes and offer themselves love and receive love from themselves. So I created the self-love guided meditation, which is it's a guidebook. I have an audio version that's separate, but in terms of what I'm offering, it's a guidebook that shows you through the steps of how you can learn and practice self-love. I recommend twice a day, 5 minutes each time for 30 days. Just do that. It will change your life completely. And so what I'm offering is this guidebook, which is a gift from me to you, and you can just come and get it.
That's fabulous. Lovely. Lovely. Now, before we say goodbye to the audience, what would you
Yes.
like to share with them? One last thing from your heart or your mind?
Mm.
I tricked you, huh?
Well, the biggest thing I'll say, and this is something I've said now for quite a few months in my own live talks that I do every day, which is, as a reminder, is to please take care of yourself. We have this tendency to keep trying to do things out there, make things happen. We neglect who we are. Just like self-love, self-care, which sounds also one of these simple things, it can be a life-changing experience. And to practice steps, tools to love yourself, whether it can be through what you eat, getting enough sleep, taking care of yourself, on whatever level shows up. If you feel yourself stressing out on something, that's a clue that you're not taking care of yourself in that area. So if you take care of yourself inside whatever relationship you're in, family, romantic, social, any of those times, like knowing when to say no, that sort of thing, it will be a game changer in your life. So if you do that one as well, it'll blow your life wide open.
It's awesome. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
being here with us. It was
My
great.
pleasure. My honor, of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Make Love Real, How to Create More Love in Your Life. We'll see you in another one.